exactly 9:30.
9:30.
According to the internet, it's 9:30.
Good morning. We'll call this meeting to order. Please stand for the invocation and pledge of allegiance. This morning we have Pastor Norm Taylor. Pastor, if you'll come to the podium and
First of all, thank you for inviting me today to pray for your meeting. And I think it's refreshing to know that our county officials understand the power and the importance of prayer. Let us pray. Our Heavenly Father, as we come before you today, I believe that we all understand the importance of strong leadership in positions of authority in our county. We pray for the Board of Supervisors, collectively and individually. We're asking that you would give them wisdom to make some very difficult decisions that may not be popular with everyone, but the right decisions to the best of their abilities. Please give them the vision to see how the decisions made today will affect our community in the future. We also ask that you would bless each member, keeping them spiritually, mentally, and physically healthy, and also bless their families. God, give them the courage to be bold and lead Mohave County forward in a very difficult economy and difficult times. Lord, give them favor as they conduct this meeting today. Give them good ideas, God ideas, that will make a positive impact upon our community and will also bless our community. We thank you for all of these men and women. We now ask all of these things in the strong name of Jesus. Amen.
amen. If you'll recite with me the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we'll need a motion to go into executive session 9 a.m. on September the 16th.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second by Supervisor Johnson for the executive session on the 19th. Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carried. On down to official business. This morning I would like to just take a moment to give our regards to a member of our community that's been an activist, also a friend of Mohave County. He also served on the Golden Valley Fire Board. And it's sorry to report to you this morning that Jim Canellis has expired and died over the weekend. Next, we have committee and legislative reports. Supervisor Johnson, do you have a?
Yes, yes, Mr. Chairman. The Center on Sustainable Communities, in partnership with the Iowa Deconstruction and Reuse Initiative, hosted a webinar on how the state of Iowa received grant money to put into place a program to help counties and cities take part in the benefits of deconstruction over demolition. Deconstruction is a process of systematically removing a building or structure by taking it apart in the reverse order of construction with the goal of maximizing the reuse and recycling. Through the program, the Iowa Department of Natural Resources provides counties and cities financial assistance to address dilapidated commercial and public buildings. In 2013, Iowa selected 20 projects out of 37 statewide for funding, a total of $497,000. There's currently no cost for the program. The money received from the recycle and reused material is put back into the program, generating a revenue stream. Don Oswald, the deconstruction program instructor for the Center on Sustainable Communities, briefly listed some of the benefits of deconstruction over demolition. Some of those are the costs for landfill fees, because they can range from $6 to $12 a square foot with demolition. demolition and only range from 3 to 8 with deconstruction. Other jobs are produced with deconstruction as well, usually producing 4 to 8 workers over 2 highly paid workers on demolition jobs. A couple of challenges the program is facing are the need for zoning regulations and permits specific to deconstruction, the potential rise in landfill tipping fees, and the time frame it takes to complete. It can take 2 weeks for a deconstruction progress to complete, which is a little bit longer than a demolition. And that's all, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Supervisor Johnson. Supervisor Angus, do you have a report this morning?
That's
Supervisor Brotherton?
no.
Supervisor Mohave?
No.
All right. Now we have the county administrator's report.
I have no report today, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay, we have the approval of the May 13th, 2013 special meeting, the May 13th, 2013 County Administrator Responsibilities Workshop, June 3rd, 2013 Budget Workshop, and June 3, 2013 County Administrator Job Description Workshop for the supervisor meeting minutes for approval.
Move to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second by Supervisor Angus for the approval of the minutes. Those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, motion carried. Next, we have call to the public. Those wishing to address the board at the call of the public regarding matters not on the board agenda have already filled out a yellow slip to identify themselves to request to speak. Action taken as a result of public comments will be limited to responding to criticism, referral to staff, or placing a matter on a future agenda. Comments are restricted to items not on the regular agenda, with the exception of the consent agenda, and must relate to matters within the jurisdiction of the board. We have one person signed up for call to the public, and that would be Steve Robinson. Mr. Robinson?
My name is Steve Robinson, 3439 North Bowie Road, Golden Valley. It is with sadness that I'm wearing this shirt in tribute to my friend and fellow constitutional conservative Jim Canellis. His sometimes unconventional methods of making a point gained him notoriety and even an arrest and an acquittal. But the man was a man of integrity who believed what he believed, and I believe he was a major reason why we have a new board today that we do. I'm today addressing an issue that was on last month's August 19th consent agenda, item number 26. It was repairing the embankment on Blake Ranch Road. And as I read through it and then went out and looked at that, I realized it's not an embankment, it's a road, or it's a dam. Calling it an embankment would be like calling the Mexican gray wolf a chihuahua. I have some questions that I think the board needs to address on that. One was the original dam permitted and authorized through the Army Corps of Engineers, the Arizona Department of Water Resources, and other pertinent issues that are like the Environmental Protection Agency or the Endangered Species Act, because there are some issues there. I don't know if that was addressed originally when it was built 30 years ago. Was there an actual permit to deal with the storage of the water? Is there also an engineer's design on file from the original construction? Was there a permit granted by the county? According to the statement in the consent agenda item, it says there is no engineering analysis has been made of the existing stability of this structure or this design, as was stated by Nick Hunt. So my question is, if this thing does collapse because there is no engineered design on it, wouldn't the county be in greater liability if this were to fail at a later time? And secondly, since the dam itself is on private property, the top of the dam is the road, and this clay liner that's going to be put in is on private property, I guess I have to ask the question, why is the county paying for repair of a private dam. So that's my questions. I hope that you'll take a look at that.
Thank you, Mr. Robinson. I'm going to veer from our normal mode of operation, and I'd like to have Administrator Hendricks respond to several of those questions asked. Mr. Hendricks?
Mr. Chairman, I'll do my best to try to respond to this particular project. As Mr. Robinson stated, was brought before the board at the last meeting and was approved by the board. This project is a maintenance project. It's not a reconstruction project. There's hasn't been any detailed engineering analysis for this project, just good common sense engineering on what's necessary to try to improve the situation. Currently, the situation on that embankment is we have piping of the waters through the bank, and it conceivably could fail, or very likely would fail, if left unattended. Regarding the permitting of the project, it's my understanding that the original project was submitted to Arizona Department of Water Resources in 1980, and at that time, ADWR determined that it wasn't a jurisdictional dam, which means that they really didn't have any permit authority for permitting a dam structure. The other question was the dam permitted by any other jurisdiction? We do have a letter on file. The actual road is owned by the federal government, and we've got a letter on file from Ruben Sanchez stating that he has no objection to the maintenance activities that are proposed on that dam. Regarding whether Title 48 applies to this particular project, I'd like to read something from the state statute that says, written authorization is not required for, nor shall the board prohibit the construction of bridges, culverts and dikes or other structures necessary for the construction of public highways, roads, or streets. That's one exemption that exempts this particular structure. The second exemption that exempts this particular structure is the construction of storage dams for watering livestock or wildlife and structures on the bank of watercourses to prevent erosion or damage to adjoining lands. Is also a exempt activity. So we don't permit livestock ponds, and our roadway construction, whatever's necessary to establish a roadway over a structure, would be exempt from our permitting process. The other thing that I'd like to mention is the need for this particular occurrence. This particular activity, when we looked at this as a project, what we saw is that one of the things that we wanted to try to establish is an additional water supply for fire protection in the area. And the people who own this property have agreed to allow us to do a similar dry well as what is being proposed for Pine Lake, so that we would have a water supply in that area. Also, what became painfully obvious after the last fire is that this particular road provides good, reasonable access to that portion of the mountain, Wallapai Mountains, and we believe it's necessary to maintain the roadway. There has been some discussion on whether it would be more beneficial to just take out the dike and not have a water supply there. What we believe, and we ask the board to consider, is that if we did that, we would lose the water supply, and we would have a considerable maintenance problem and issues every time it rains, similar to what we have in McGarry's Wharf, where we have to have the road department out there rebuilding that roadway after every significant storm event. So we believe that this was a good project to place in front of the board for a business decision. We believe that we've got all the proper authority to do the work on the roadway. I do appreciate Mr. Robinson bringing it to our attention so that I can address his questions publicly, and thank you. So if you do have any other questions or any similar requests, you can always feel free to call on either myself or my department heads, and we'll certainly make ourselves available to you if you have any future concerns. Or like what happened today, you certainly have the option to address the board directly. But thank you.
Thank you, Administrator Hendricks.
Mr. Chairman, I just have a question. We're probably getting way off subject here, but wasn't this voted on the last meeting?
Mr. Chairman, Supervisor Johnson, yes, at the last meeting, this particular project was brought before the board and approved by the board to make as a project and to fund.
Right, and all the substantial information was included?
Everything was included, as far as I was aware, as backup information, including rock-solid justification by Director Hunt.
Thank you.
Thank you. And this morning, we have a proclamation, the employer support of National Guard and Reserve Week in Mohave County, September 22nd through 28th. And we have Supervisor Angus would like to read that proclamation.
Proclamation. Whereas National Guard and Reserve forces comprise nearly half of our nation's military strength and are essential to Americans' national security, Reserve component forces stand ready to answer the call to serve, whether serving alongside active duty counterparts all across the globe or responding to humanitarian crisis at home and abroad. And whereas employers provide critical support to members of the National Guard and Reserve, allowing citizen warriors to serve whenever the nation calls, often foregoing financial gain and making sacrifices in the process. And whereas employers' support is stronger than ever, more than 41 years after President Richard Nixon authorized the Secretary of Defense to establish the National Committee for Employer Support of the National Guard, and whereas our nation is in debt to the citizen warriors departing the comforts of home to ensure our freedoms remain intact, likewise, America pays special tribute to the commitment of dedicated and supportive employers who continue to make service in the reserve components possible. And now, therefore, be it resolved that the Mohave County Board of Supervisors does hereby proclaim the week of September 22nd through the 28th, 2013, as Employer Support of the National Guard and Reserve Week in Mohave County.
Thank you, Supervisor Angus. Would it be appropriate to have a motion for acceptance?
No, but we... You can do it if we want.
Okay. Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carried. Thank you very much. Now we come to the consent agenda, items 5 through 31. Start with Supervisor Johnson. Do you have anything to pull from?
No, sir.
Supervisor Angus?
No.
Supervisor Brotherton?
None.
Supervisor Moss?
No.
And I have none either. Chair would entertain a motion for the consent agenda, items 5 through 31.
I move that we approve the consent agenda, items 5 through 31.
Second.
And we have a second from Supervisor Angus. Any further questions? There being none, those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carried. Move on to public hearings. Item number 32A, will open the public hearing, discussion and possible action regarding the adoption of Board of Supervisors Resolution number 2013-112, the amendment to the South Mohave Valley Area Plan for a commercial land use designation to a single-family residence land use designation to allow a residential lot for assessor's parcel number 224-24-090 in the South Mohave Valley vicinity, east of St. George Road, between Courtright Road and Plantation Drive in Mohave Valley. Anyone wishing to speak to items 32A? Anyone wishing to speak to item 32A? There being none, we'll close the public hearing, and Chair will entertain a motion.
I move that we approve item 32A.
Second.
We have a motion and a second by Supervisor Angus to approve item 32A. Any further discussion? There being none, those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carried. Now we'll open the public hearing for item number 32B. Discussion, possible action regarding the adoption of Board Resolutions number 2013-113 for rezone of assessor's parcel number 224-24-090 from a general commercial highway lot size zone to allow a residential lot in the South Mohave Valley vicinity, east of St. George Road, between Courtright Road and Plantation Road in Mohave County. Anyone wishing to speak to item 32B? Anyone wishing to speak to item 32B? Close the public hearing. Chair would entertain a motion.
Move to approve item 32B.
Second.
We have a motion and a second from Supervisor Moss. Questions? There being no further questions, those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carried. Item number 33A, open the public hearing for discussion, possible action regarding the adoption of Board Resolutions number 2013-114, amendment to the Mohave Valley General Plan from a rural development area land use designation to a rural development area commercial recreation land use designation to allow for a bed and breakfast use for assessors parcel number 33-41-004 in the Valley Vista vicinity, northeast corner of Huntington Avenue and Deerhorn Road. We have one person signed up to speak to this item. Susan Strange.
My name is Susan Stang. I reside at 7314 East Brooks Boulevard. I'm opposed to the current question. I live on Brooks Boulevard, and Brooks Boulevard is the street that goes to the winery. I'm on the south side. On the north side is a 40-acre parcel, and on the north side of that 48 parcel is Huntington Avenue, and Huntington Avenue is where the proposed bed and breakfast is. At the August 14th Planning and Zoning Commission hearing, the commissioner asked the property owner several questions. Some of the questions were regarding the access route to their property.
That's okay, ma'am. Go ahead and proceed.
One question was what route would be used to access their property. The owner said the route would be via Painted Rock Drive to Huntington Avenue and then down Huntington to their property. Next, he asked the owner if they were aware that Huntington was not a county-maintained road. The property owner said they were aware of that fact. On August 30th, I spoke with Mr. Morris of the Planning and Zoning Department. Excuse me. I asked him if the statements made by the property owner at that August 14th hearing regarding their access route to their property were binding. Mr. Morris said probably not, because people can drive on any dedicated right-of-way they want. I live on Brooks Boulevard, one street south of Huntington. Brooks Boulevard is county maintained. When the winery center was being built, the dust churned up by the construction vehicles was suffocating. It was like living in a daily dust storm for 6 months. So is there any way this board can get an assurance from the property owner that construction personnel and vehicles will be directed to use Painted Rock to Huntington as they stated in the August 14th hearing and not via Brooks Boulevard?
Thank you for your comment.
Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to to respond to item number 33A? There being none, we'll close the public hearing and entertain a motion for action.
I move that we, I move that we open item 33A for discussion.
We have a motion for discussion
Yes.
I'll second.
and a second. Those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 I had a question. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I had a question for either Mr. Ekstrom or Mr. Hendricks. Are we able to approve this amendment and the following rezone on 33B conditioned upon them using what was the name of that drive, ma'am? Painted Rock Drive access?
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Moss, I don't believe we have that authority, particularly because it's trying to impose a condition on private individuals, contractors, whoever else go to that property. I don't think the property owner would be really able to enforce that anyway.
So when it comes to construction vehicles using the county road, which is a possibility, and those construction vehicles, what I assume because of the weight of these vehicles, damaging that road, the county has to fix it?
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Moss, there's a lot of construction going on out there, not just
Sure.
at this particular building. So certainly the county's responsible for maintaining those roads. And if you build a house out there, the vehicles are going to go on those roads. That's the purpose of those roads.
And it's what I was getting at is there's lots of places where construction's going on, but they're generally in areas where it's been zoned for that. And we don't have to allow a zoning change or an amendment to the general plan if we don't want to. So what I'm pushing or trying to get to is, can we extract a quid pro quo for us changing this general plan and the zoning when it comes to utilizing a particular road?
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Moss, I know that in the past we have tried to do some contract zoning or conditional zoning like that. Traditionally, that is not considered to be legal.
Thank you. And if I could ask another question about this project, is this bed and breakfast associated with the winery? Is it going to be in a related business?
I believe I can answer that. I don't believe that they're related, although it would be an ancillary type business.
It's basically an independent business which saw a chance to make money because of another business's location?
That's correct.
Okay.
Mhm.
All right.
All right, at this time, I'll make a motion in order to proceed further. I'd like to make a motion to approve item 33A.
I'll second.
We have a second by Supervisor Angus. Any further questions? There being none, those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carried. Item number 33B, open the public hearing for discussion, possible action, the adoption of Board Resolution number 2013-115 for the rezone of Assessors Parcel number 333-41-004 from an agricultural residential 36-acre minimum lot size zone to a commercial recreation 36-acre lot size zone to allow for a bed and breakfast use in the Valley Vista vicinity, the northeast corner of Huntington Avenue and Deerhorn Road. Commission has recommended approval by unanimous vote. And again, we have Ms. Susan Stange to address this item. Ms. Stange, would you like to come down again?
My name is Susan Stang. My address is 7314 East Brooks Boulevard, and I'm opposed to the current question. When I was at the August 14th meeting and the chairman's asking questions, I didn't take the questions as frivolous. I thought the answers carried a lot of weight. If I was telling somebody I'm taking a certain road, that would carry some weight. And I'm only addressing during the construction period that I know that if I have a guy come out to the house and I tell him, take this road, this road, this road, that they'll take that road. I'm the boss. They're the construction people. So that was my question, is that he was asking her a bunch of questions and she was saying yes, yes, yes. So I was thinking, well, I may not be in favor of a bed and breakfast, but at least I don't have to drown in all that dust. I mean, it was so bad, even with all my doors and windows shut. I went and bought clear plastic drop cloths to put over my bed in my spare bedroom. The dust was just, you could dust 10 times a day. It was awful. So that was why I thought since she's here, that maybe she could say that, yes, that it's in her power to direct, during the construction, direct the route they take. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak to item number 33B? Yes, ma'am. Please state your name and address for the record.
I'm Ann Sini, currently living at 4395 North Skylark in Kingman. I am the petitioner on this resolution, and Ms. Stang is correct in that Brooks Boulevard does, and I can see how it could kick up a lot of dust if it were used. The reason I cannot tell a construction person or anybody else to use Brooks is because there is no road easement between Brooks and Huntington. It's just public utilities easements, which is only 18 feet. So technically that's not a road, even though public utilities would be using it for maintenance of their lines. So I don't think I have the authority to tell anyone to use those public utilities easements as a road, and I will be instructing my construction people to use Painted Rock Road and to Huntington to get to our property. Also, I think the use of that road would help pound it down a little and make it more drivable. So I think it would be to our advantage to instruct people to go Painted Rock, Huntington, and not use Brooks. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else wishing to speak to item 33B? There being no one else, we'll close the public hearing for item 33B.
I move that we approve item 33B.
Second.
We have a motion and a second by Supervisor Johnson for the approval of item 33B. Any further questions? There being none, those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And those opposed, motion carried. Item number 34, open a public hearing for the discussion, possible action. Consider the adoption of the fees noted in the Mohave County Treasurer's proposed fee schedule. Ms. Cox, would you like to address the board?
Thank you, Chairman Watson and supervisors and everyone else. Any questions that you have on the proposed budget that we supplied to you, my office supplied to you?
Any supervisors have any questions for Ms. Cox on the proposed fees?
If I could, Mr. Chairman.
Supervisor
And this
Moss.
is, I don't have a question, I've read the materials, but this is sort of the benefit of the viewing public. These fees are designed to recoup the costs associated with complying with your statutory obligations, which is allowed by statute. And there's no profit involved.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
And in the past, my understanding is we had a really hard time finding anything in the Board of Supervisors minutes anything was ever approved except for a couple of fees. They've just arbitrarily and capriciously decided this is how much we're charging the public. So we went out and Gene Hepler's office, the Office of Management and Budget, helped us decide, really analyze what the costs were and how much we should be charging for each of these services. So I think that it was a good combination of offices to come together and say, okay, it was important to me that it be out there, that people know about it, and that the board approve it.
Chairman? And for the sake of the viewing public, most of these fees have gone down.
Yes, that's correct.
I don't think any of them have gone up.
In fact, we've eliminated some of them.
Very
We
good.
didn't even put them on there. That was never approved by the board, that we're being charged, and I said, why are we charging this? So,
Thank you.
thank you. Any other questions? Thank you very much.
No other questions? Thank you, Ms. Cox, for bringing this to the board's attention. Anyone else wishing to speak to item number 34? There being none, we'll close the public hearing.
Move to approve item 34.
Second.
We have a motion and a second by Supervisor Moss to approve item number 34. There being any further discussion? There being none, those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carried. That brings us to item number 35. Discussion, possible action regarding the delinquent taxes and penalty payments due from the Mount Tipton Water Company Incorporated. This has been brought to the board by Supervisor Brotherton.
Yes, I'd like to move for discussion.
Supervisor Brotherton?
So, yeah,
Okay.
Hildy beat me to it.
Okay. Is there anyone here from the Mount Tipton Water Company?
Yep, I believe there's 4 gentlemen there.
Very good. We have some questions. I have some questions. I'm sure everybody does.
I'll try my best to answer them.
Okay.
Name is Alan, A-L-A-N, Schatzel, S-H-A-T-Z-E-L. Mailing address 16021 North Pierce Ferry Road, PMB number 105, Dolan Springs, Arizona, 86441.
Okay, very good. Can you tell me, are you a member of the board?
I am the vice president for the last 5 years.
Okay. Do you have one building or 2 buildings, or how many buildings does Mount Tipton Water Company have?
The one we're trying to solve is what you're talking about?
How many buildings altogether does Mount Tipton Water Company have?
I believe Mr. Don Bertrand, the president, would have that. 2 buildings.
2 buildings, okay. And they're not on the same parcel?
No.
Okay. Have you always had, do you have a history of having a problem paying the taxes? Has there been a history of that?
What has happened, and then if I can read the letter we sent to you,
Yes.
to the rest of the supervisors. We are a small profit water company that provides quality water to approximately 1,800 people in rural Mohave County. We are in compliance with all the state and federal agencies that govern water companies. We are requesting any advice or assistance that you may be able to offer in regards to a difficult situation that our company finds itself in. We currently owe $185,011.44 in back property taxes. The balance increases every month due to interest and penalties, regardless of the many payments we have made. We have kept up with our current bills for the last few years, yet being charged 16% interest per year is causing a balance on the tax liens to increase by more than $2,000 per month. Our company does not have enough disposable income to pay the interest each year. We have a commercial building that we've been trying to sell for the purpose of paying off our past due property taxes. It has been for sale for years to no avail, so we recently lowered the price and changed realtors. This is a desperate attempt to get whatever we can for the building before it gets to the point where there is no hope of paying off our tax liens regardless of selling the building. The current asking price is $140,000. If we sold the building for this price, we would receive $128,800 after the realtor's commission. This is $58,677 less than we will owe on August 1st when the interest accrues next. It is getting to the point where it seems insurmountable and could put us out of business if we cannot find a way to address the situation. We will be the first to acknowledge that this company was plagued by problems years ago. Water restrictions, customers being out of water for days, if not weeks at a time, due to a lack of necessary parts, irresponsible employees, leaks going unfixed for long periods. Mount Tipton Water Company was the bane of the citizens of Dolan Springs and was in trouble with many of the governing agencies. That was then, and this is now. There have been no water restrictions in 5 years, which is an all-time record for this water system. Customer service is a top priority, and customer needs are typically handled the same day. our employees are responsible and accountable. Essentially, over a period of only 6 years, we have gone from one of the worst water companies in Mohave County to one of the best. Our rates are set by the Arizona Corporation Commission, ACC, based on their analysis of our financial needs. The last time we went for a rate increase, they told us that past due property taxes would not be included in our rates because the company should have applied for an increase sooner. We can certainly see this point. However, all of the people that helped create this problem are long gone. At this time, the current employees and board of directors have a proven track record. It does not seem that we should be held responsible for past transgressions. Most of the tax liens that we have are owed by the state of Arizona due to no private individuals purchasing them. It seems that the state government had its own obstacles and most likely is not interested in acquiring a small water company 3 hours drive from the state capitol. A reduction in the interest rate may make it possible for us to pay this full eventually. If the interest rate remains at the maximum rate allowed by law, then it seems impossible that we could ever make this right. If this is the case, then what would be the point of continuing to make payments knowing that the balance will only increase endlessly? We want to do the right thing, but we also want to stay in business and be able to continue to provide an adequate and reliable supply of water to our residents. Any assistance or advice regarding this situation would be greatly appreciated.
Okay, sir, do you have a bookkeeper, an accountant?
Yes, we do.
Okay. Did you bring any kind of accounting with you to show where you might be able to pay these back fees if the taxes were lowered, or if there was any kind of relief for your back taxes?
Our business administrator is in Michigan at the present time with family, and she would have all the information. I believe she talked to you Friday on the phone.
Yes, I did talk to her, and I didn't realize that she was, well, I did know she was out of town, but I thought she was just over in Vegas for some reason or other. I thought maybe she was just there for the day. But we need some sort of accounting to see just where you stand, and if there is a possibility of bringing these things current if you do get some kind of relief. This would be the first thing I would say. And Cindy Cox, can you tell me the history of their tax-paying record, even before fees were added to it?
Would you care for me to move?
I don't have the paperwork with me. I apologize that. Chairman Watson and Supervisors. Supervisor Brotherton, we did look through everything for the Mount Tipton Water Company, and what we found was there are personal individual liens on a couple of the parcels, which is a problem for us in terms of the county would have to be paying those off. They're not just Arizona liens. People have paid the back taxes on some of these properties. We also found that there was one parcel that we identified was paid by the Mount Tipton Water Company current all the way through, and I think it was for a total of $128. It's like $9 a year or something like that. Do you know? Yeah, that was what has been paid. But other than that, there wasn't a lot that we found that was paid by them.
Okay. It's just my feeling right now that perhaps we don't have enough information to really make an educated decision on what we should do at this point. When will your accountant be back? Do you know?
Supervisor, she'll be back September 22nd.
Okay. I don't know. What is the feeling of the board? I'm in a quandary here.
Mr.
Because I
Chairman.
just don't feel like we have enough information.
Well, Supervisor Brotherton, thank you for bringing this to the board. It's a very important issue. It's a very important issue for the water company. And the Mount Tipton Water Company, believe me, has made some horrendous strides in improving their service delivery area, the quality of water, and they've done a marvelous job in putting this company back together again over the last 5 years. And so thank you very much, gentlemen, for that endeavor.
Thank you.
I believe that it might be in the best interest of the board and their board for us to table this action for enough time for us to be able to investigate all aspects and come up then with some type of a plan.
I believe Ron Nicholson has some information for us, too.
Okay, Mr. Nicholson, can you please give us some information?
Ron Nicholson, Mohave County Assessor. Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Just some thoughts. And I believe Mr. Ekstrom would be more of an authority of this than I, but I think according to abatement statutes, you can lower the the value down to or what is owed, as long as it does not exceed the existing value of the property. And we're looking at, you're looking at, I don't know how it quite works on centrally valued and how it would work on personal property portion, because you see the value that we have, or the Department of Revenue has assigned to all this is roughly $591,000 on the centrally valued portion. That's including the personal and the real property. And I think I heard a little bit earlier where you're talking about $94,000 in taxes total, whatever. And I just don't see how you're going to get it down to that under the abatement statute. My first thoughts when I looked into this was, well, gee, you know, if they were nonprofit under 501(c), is it possible that they could come in under the exemption statutes, but they simply do not? The only thing that might be available to them, possibly, and I think there's some history in this, is that possibly they could go to a district and a property tax assessment could be applied to the members of the district, which would then form some kind of a back pay plan. So that's my best thoughts. Any questions?
I have a question.
Yes, Supervisor Moss.
And it may not be for Mr. Nicholson, it's probably more for Mr. Ekstrom. Okay. My take on what I'm hearing is that we have a very good water company which had a trouble pass, but since it's been corrected, serving 1,800 people, and water is one of those essentials of life. And so far I can say a basic level, us assisting them is important. My question for Mr. Ekstrom is, what is the legal parameters that we can work within to assist them? Can we forgive interest? Can we forgive penalties? Can we forgive principal? How far can we go, if at all?
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Moss, I think Ron has stated pretty much what the law is regarding abatement. That is, you can only abate the taxes down to the value of the property. And evidently, the property is either overvalued or certainly worth more than the current taxes. So that exit policy is not available. Now, in chloride, I think they were a water company and they formed a water district, which gave them some governmental powers. That's something they can do by applying to the County Board of Supervisors to form a county improvement district. And we have forms available. We can facilitate that for them if that's their desire. If they choose not to pursue that course, there's very little latitude that the board has to simply waive taxes or interest and penalties, even though it absolutely sounds like something you'd want to do. Certainly during this time period when we wait for the accountant to come back, I'd be happy to look into it and talk to the staff of the county attorney's office to see if there's any other avenues that we could pursue to help the district. I mean, obviously, as Mr. Moss pointed out, water is essential for life, and particularly in the West. And this current board has done an amazing job in bringing them back. I remember 5 years ago the condition of that water district. It's really improved. So if there's a way we can help them, I know you'll want to, and I'll try to undertake the responsibility to find a way to do that. If there's no way to do it, one option they have is forming a special district.
Do you want to move the table?
Mr. Chairman, I have some more discussion on this.
Supervisor Johnson?
This is a private water company, as Mr. Ekstrom, everybody's pointed out. It's like any other private business that we have. They can do all the good things they want with their business. That really doesn't affect us. These taxes have been owed since 1976. Their fight should be with the Corporation Commission to see how they're going to run their business. We forgive taxes on a private business. How about all the rest of the people in the county that are paying taxes? I mean, it just doesn't show good stewardship on my part, and I'm not for forgiving taxes.
Thank you.
If I could, Mr. Chairman?
And I'd just like to expound somewhat further on that, and I don't believe it's the intention of the board to forgive taxes. We just want to make sure that we can get this right. Supervisor Moss.
You actually got my comment on the head. As I understand, Mr. Ekstrom, we can't forgive taxes, so that's not even in the cards. What we can do, understanding what Mr. Ekstrom says, is perhaps be a little more creative when either it becomes the assessed value of the building or the special district, and which path we take. We have to wait until next month to get their bookkeeper back. So I think I would move that we table this item until the first meeting in October.
We have a motion.
I second the motion.
And we have a second by Supervisor Brotherton.
I have a question, Mr. Chairman.
Supervisor Johnson.
I guess, what are we looking at their books for? I mean, they go through the Corporation Commission for rate increases and everything else. I mean, if they can't figure it out on their own how to get out of debt, I can't believe they would take our advice on on how to spend their money. I'm just curious.
I agree with that, but I think it would help us understand the whole parameter of the problem if we were to be able to look at the books and also make recommendations to the Corporation Commission. It appears to me that the Corporation Commission's inactivity to give you those rate increases for being able to run your company, they're somewhat at fault. Supervisor Brotherton.
I have talked with the Corporation Commission, and they really put the ball back in our court. They said the supervisors are the only ones that have any authority to forgive or reduce any kind of taxes, delinquencies, penalties, et cetera. So I talked to Susan Bittersmith, and I told her that we were putting it on the agenda and we were just going to have some discussion because I really didn't have as much information as I needed to make any kind of a decision, and that I couldn't make it by myself anyway. So I intend to get back with her, but they really have said we're the ones that's going to have to do this.
Well, they can pass the ball down the court as many times as they'd like to, but that is their job. Any further questions or comments?
I would just say that I think I have a similar situation going on in my district. It hasn't risen to this level just quite yet. And if the Corporation Commission and this board, if we each think they have powers that perhaps they don't have, perhaps we should be engaging with our state legislators so we get those powers that everyone thinks we have but don't.
Okay. We have a motion to table this item until October. Those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed? Motion carried.
He has a question, I think.
Yes, sir.
Yes, Supervisor Johnson, I believe you said we were privately owned. This is like a co-op. There is over 700 people that own this company, really the people that get the water from us.
I understand you. Thank you. I understand it's a private business, and while we can all, feel the pain of what you're going through, the board, at least in my opinion, needs to stick to what they were elected to do and not get into picking winners and losers on. We're already doing one fire district, that's costing the taxpayers $1.5 million. That was all mine. It had nothing to do. I know you gentlemen have, and if there's any ladies, have done a fine job of bringing it up to standards, but those are just my concerns with our responsibility and what we have to do with the taxpayers' money.
Thank you all.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Item number 36, discussion, possible action regarding the implementation of the NACO prescription discount card program for Mohave County employees at no additional cost. The agreement is for an initial term of 5 years from the effective date and to continue for successive one-year terms thereafter. subject to the previous provisions of the agreement. This has been continued by the board from July 1st, 2013 minutes for 60 days for staff to provide an update to the board. This has been brought to the agenda by Supervisor Brotherton.
Yes, and I'm going to need some of Mr. Ekstrom's help here. Mr. Ekstrom, when the motion was made, it was made, and the word was used to accept this discount card program for Mohave County employees. And actually, the discussion was, it wasn't just for employees, it was for all county residents, including employees. So we need to clean this up. It had to come back saying Mohave County employees because that's the way the motion was made. So I think Hildy made the motion at that time. How can we correct this and make it for all county residents?
Mr. Chairman, Ms. Brotherton, that came to the staff's attention that in some instances our employees would want to be on this program. The only way we can correct that, I believe, is to re-agendize it and make it clear that this program is available to all the citizens of the county and put some backup that explains to them the great benefits that can be achieved through the NACO program.
Supervisor Johnson, you have a question?
Can't we just do a reconsideration?
My issue is with the agendized item. It does say employees on the agenda.
Right, but I mean, can't we just, what's the timeline on doing a reconsideration on item 13 from whatever date and just changing it right there and go ahead?
You can do that.
Yeah. You could do it
But you
today.
have to
if you want.
agendize it again, so.
You wouldn't have to re-agendize it, could you? You could just reconsider it today, or is there a timeline for 30 days or something?
No, you
Too
can.
far past it? I mean, it's just a technicality. It's not like we're diverting anything.
The cleanest way to do is to re-agendize it. It's not to say that you can't make a motion or reconsider it, but were I to read the agenda, I would think this was only for county employees. And basically, the purpose of agendizing it is to let the public know what is the scope of the item on the agenda. So that's a conservative approach to it. It's, I think, the legal approach. Is there some sort of time frame within which this has to be done?
Well, I was wanting it to be done as soon as possible. This has drug on and on and on. Actually, for about 3 or 4 years. So I was really wanting to get it done. With my discussion, I thought maybe that would cover it. With my discussion, when we made the motion, after the motion that I explained, it wasn't just for employees, it was for all county residents. But there still seems to be some misunderstanding, and I was told that I had to come back this way because that's the way the motion was made.
And I believe, for clarification, Mr. Ekstrom has identified a way for us to do that, and it's simply to re-agendize it to include all the citizens of Mohave County.
And that's what I wanted to do this time, but I was told I couldn't.
All right, so do it next time.
Mr. Chairman, I'll defer to
Oh.
Supervisor Johnson.
I mean, I think, because there is no cost to anybody on this, and we're not forcing anybody to do anything. I think if Ms.
No.
Brotherton wants to, or Supervisor Brotherton wants to just make the motion, we can let Attorney Ekstrom fight the battles later on.
Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Supervisor Moss?
As Mr. Ekstrom, as I understand it, the problem with the language in item 36 is it identifies employees as the beneficiary of the program. The actual agenda item does not identify residents as being a potential recipient or beneficiary of this program. Am I interpreting your comments correctly?
Yes, you are.
Okay. So we don't want to go above the scope of the agenda item, essentially, is the problem, because we'd be expanding it. Okay. Would it be a problem if we just brought it back in 2 weeks' time for a mid-month meeting and have you correct the language so that it's more expansive and vote on it then?
Mr. Chair, Mr. Moss, that's what I would recommend.
Yeah, I believe that's what he's intending to do. So if you'd like to make a motion to bring it back.
If with Supervisor Brotherton's permission, I make a motion that we instruct staff, including the county attorney, to bring item 36 back to us at our next meeting, in our next regular meeting, for purposes of clarifying that the scope of item 36 is inclusive of county residents in addition to county employees.
I second the motion.
We have a motion and a second by Supervisor Brotherton. Any further discussion? There being none, those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carried. Item number 37, discussion, possible action, approved Chairman Watson signing a letter of support from the Board of Supervisors to the governor recommending Don Martin to be appointed to the Arizona Game and Fish Commission. In your packet, there is a letter that has been put together outlining the achievements of this gentleman, and I certainly believe that Don Martin would be a fantastic representative for northwestern Arizona to the Arizona Game and Fish. And I would like to thank Supervisor Johnson for his input in designing and putting this letter together. If you have any questions of Mr. Martin, I may be able to answer some of those questions, but I think the letter is pretty descriptive.
Your letter is glowing. I couldn't think of a better candidate.
That's true.
Well, I'd like to make a motion then to approve for the signing of this letter of support for Don Martin to the Arizona Game and Fish Commission.
Second.
We have a motion and a second by Supervisor Moss. Questions? There being none, those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carried. And again, thank you, Supervisor Johnson, for your expertise in designing this letter. I believe that's the end of this meeting. Meeting adjourned.
Very good.